So let's do Ben. I don't know, 20 minutes. We could talk about. Um, I can't even think of the fucking words. Misinformation research, right? We'll do about 20 minutes, and then oh, that's the button I'm looking for. And then we'll open up the pit for the rest of the rest of you fucking nasties to get in here and fucking pal around in the mud. Okay, great. All right. Okay. So I got this thing set up. Grom, are you here? Grom. Grom. All right, requests. There we go. Bing, bing. Okay, get started. Okay. Here we go. All right, Ben. All right, already in queue. Cool. You should mute the stream, yes. So when you jump into the guest star thing, mute the stream.
Bebop, a rebop, a PPP.
I'm in. Yo, Ben. Hello. I don't know.
Hello, sir.
Okay, they can hear you.
I can hear you.
I don't know why they can't see you, though.
Can you hear me, however?
I can hear you and I can see you. But with guest star, you should have popped up on the screen for like
Yeah.
everybody to see. But it's only just me, and I don't know. Hold on.
I can't see you, but I can see myself in the window.
Yeah, so that's because so my video is dedicated to the stream, so like you won't be able to see me, but you should be able to see hear me.
Got it.
That's annoying. But I don't want to fuck with it because I mean this is also too like this shit's in beta, so
That's fair.
Yeah. Oh, we'll just deal with it. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. So Ben, thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
Chat.
thanks for having me.
Caller, you're on the air. Where you calling from? What you go? So you had when you talked about your misinformation researcher.
Yes, sir.
All right, and like we didn't plan any of this out, so like
That's
I'm gonna
fine.
bare bones basic ass questions.
Sure.
Because I want to know more, but I'm sure it'll also be helpful in that. So
I can just talk about like my thesis project a little bit and kind of give you an idea of what my methods and my interests are, if that helps.
Not yet.
All
I've
right.
got more basic stuff. Thesis
Okay, cool.
you're like that's too advanced.
All right.
Hey, well, so and like this where too is like so, you are going through a doctorate program then.
No.
No.
Not yet. That was my
Okay.
my master's, and we're working on the next kind of phase of the research. I got to find someone to pay for my my PhD first.
Word. Well, hey, then this is where making sure you don't say you're a socialist on LinkedIn will always help.
Oh well, I think the cat's out of the bag on that one.
All right. So yeah. So and this is what I gets to is like so it's misinformation research, right? And now is that an established, I guess, entity now?
Yes.
As far as and then where, like I mean, like can you kind of describe even like, or do you know where like kind of developed or like when do you think there's like a staple of like we have now academically, you know,
Sure.
focused on studying misinformation and its effects.
Yeah. So I would say that Stanford's Internet Observatory is probably the most visible organization that is researching misinformation at the moment. I work with DePaul's Adversarial Cybersecurity Automation Lab and with Dr. Sharevsky, and we're churning out papers right on the
Yeah.
topic. And I would say that originally this was sort of a sociological, psychological topic, and then there's a lot of research around how misinformation affects us as consumers, right, as a society,
Hmm.
and because it is so prolific online, people like myself in cybersecurity view it as a threat, right? Anything that is a threat to a source of truth, I think, is kind of under our umbrella. But we only recently coined misinformation, disinformation as like a pop culture term that we are using freely. I think 2016 has a lot to do with that, but it's
Yeah.
been happening for a while now.
Word, word, word. Okay. And so, well, yeah. So I guess too, like, so as it moves from kind of like, yeah, like the like more of like the sociology realm, yeah, or like right, for more of
Hmm.
like this is a human phenomena
Yeah,
that can't necessarily be tied down,
yeah,
right? This is more of like, oh, it's just something of the human experience, right?
yeah.
So where does it, I guess, can you say where does it go from that, vibes-based study to, and maybe 2016 has a good role in this, right? But
Hmm.
like of, kind of talk about, I guess, yeah, more of the structural things of how the study goes from the more vibes to this is actually something that we can pinpoint, and especially when it comes to the internet and stuff like that, as far as actors, websites, all of those
So,
things.
um, my, I guess, school of thought is called human-centered cybersecurity, and we recognize that topics like this are multidisciplinary, right? We require psychologists, we require sociologists, we require people, infrastructure specialists, social media experts. It's not going to happen by one domain or another, right? Because to dial it back a little bit to sort of the core philosophy here is that there is no longer an abstraction between online and in IRL, right? Because we're so irrevocably connected at all times. It is one space with just different layers of abstraction between your present physical space. So
Yeah.
misinformation permeates all of those abstractions, right? Especially as long as it affirms your biases, right? So where does it go from there, right? We've been classifying it like crazy. We have all sorts of so my research. I partnered with Dr. Sharevsky from DePaul, and he does folk models, right? So how we, as the consumer, classify it is different from how academics classify it, and then to go further, like detection methodologies are highly technical and fairly accurate, but they still require people to identify and take action. And so, yeah, to again, multidisciplinary, technological, sociological, and it's very much participatory, right? We
Yeah.
have our own biases that are reflected on this research as well, right? I think it was, gosh, I forget who said it, but like the facts lean left, and a lot of the people in this field lean left. So they're
Which
yeah.
that's in
Go ahead.
coming from like a political science
Hmm.
background in higher education,
Hmm.
I I grew to hate that because it's
Yeah.
just like I'm right though. Like
Yeah.
I'm correct. Okay. Don't say it's
Hmm.
political and oh you're just I'm right. Show me how I'm wrong. But either way,
Well, I
but
mean,
that's one of the things that I do honestly miss and respect and like about being in an academic environment is
sure.
at least at least there's a dedication to trying to figure out the biases, to
Mm-hmm.
like actually get to the correct point.
Yeah.
But capitalist realism can take over. But either
Yeah,
way,
yeah. I mean,
um,
much of it does boil down to el capitalismo. One of
yeah,
the points I've repeated is that it is in the best interest of the holders of capital and power, the owners of the platforms where we do this, the people we elect, to allow the proliferation of misinformation, because it keeps us consuming, it keeps us divided, it keeps us afraid, right? The division is very important, right? Because all of us are being screwed. Doesn't matter what team you're playing for, but as long as someone is always the boogeyman, it's too easy to let it keep happening, right?
yeah. And so, well, let's get into your more focus.
Sure.
So yeah, now you can describe
Okay.
your thesis. Now that I'm ready,
Yeah,
please.
yeah. So my work focused on sort of the denizens of social media, the people who are highly active with regards to identifying it and counteracting it, and just being around all the time. And a lot of those people are hackers. A lot of them are sort of I call them like counterculture espionage, but there's a whole ecosystem of people collecting human intelligence on each other, on threat actors, on politicians, and just sort of countering the message on like Twitter, especially. Had a lot of those people, and many of them are former like 420 chan or 8chan denizens who were like, fuck
Yeah.
this place, we're gonna go collect it. So I talked to a lot of these people, about 25 of them, and I wanted to know what their models of misinformation were, how they perceived it as existing in the ecosystem, had they ever interacted with it as like a counter operational standpoint, and then what do they envision as counter operations look like? And
So now you're
mhm.
talking about people who are countering misinformation, or people who are engaging in misinformation,
Good
or
question.
like both? Yes, and
Yes, and pretty much. So a number of the people I reached out to sort of grouped around a particular set of misinformation actors. There's a particularly goofy motherfucker who's on the payroll of NSO Group, which is a very shadowy tech company that designs and sells spyware. They've been in the news a couple times. I think Citizen Lab exposed their operation to exploit the phones of Catalan, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, separatists, the sort of island off the coast of
Spain,
Spain. Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Spanish separatists. So this one person is we consider them to be on the payroll, and they use an academic persona to run counter messaging, right? And because they style themselves as an information security professional and are very bad at it, a number of information security sort of influencers, some of these human intelligence people, a couple of very famous hackers, became aware and sort of formed around this in a sort of loose counter operation. And it's interesting because many of us, I would identify as kind of part of this group, see these social spaces as home. They are our responsibility, right? Some of us grew up on forums, right? I was a
Yeah.
something awful nerd for a long time, and many of these people did all sorts of spin-offs of 4chan because it was either too lib or too extremist. They all
Yeah.
formed their own groups. So there's a sense of ownership in many of the people who are like terminally online, but also have an innate understanding of how the technology or how the people interface. So I wanted to know if they had like a full model of what a counter operation would look like. Which there is a framework called the disarm framework that takes so in cybersecurity there's the attack framework put out by one of the groups under the National Institute of Science and Technology, where it kind of goes through the kill chain, right? Because security loves to steal from military terminology. It's pretty gross. But, from recon to entry to exploit to pivot down to exfiltration. So we kind of took that design and wrote out what the misinformation operation would look like and what a effective counter operation would look like. And I mapped a lot of the responses to the blue and to the red framework. And the, I guess, enlightening truth is that together as a group, these people have a mostly complete folk model of a counter operation. However, the key missing piece is that nobody really knows, or rather nobody has intuited how to persist, how to evaluate success, right? And I'm hoping to make the sort of next step of this research a sort of a public-facing option to track and to interact with misinformation. In cyber, there's the security incident and event management system, SIM, right? It's where all your like telemetry and traffic goes into, the little lights go on, and you click the button and take action from there. Yeah. Something like that, but it's basically PBS for Misinfo. You go on there, you check out the news articles, you check out the related sort of social graph from there, and then you meet up with a group of people and you talk about how are we going to counter this messaging.
Word.
And also there were some interesting splits along gender binary. I had a rough, almost 50-50. I wish it could have been a little closer, but mask and femme presenting people, and those socialized mask are very much like, we must fight the misinformation. Yeah. We must take it to the fore, and most of them see it as external to themselves. They don't identify as consumers, and it's very much the Garfield meme, right? None of you are immune to propaganda. And there's I guess the masculine urge to deny that. And many of the femme presenting people identify like empathy and interpersonal contact as key to the success of countering misinformation. And they're right. And to a degree, they're both right. But a lot of the research around sort of countering on a one-on-one, right? How do I tell my grandpa at Thanksgiving that the immigrants are not coming to destroy us all? A lot of it is, I have empathy for you. I have empathy for your position. However, there are a lot of externalities you're not considering. So and all that is, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that's, and like, especially with like debate bro culture and all this type of shit, like people like get to say like, well, if I just present facts, then they will change their mind. And that's not how the human mind works. That's Correct. Just how logic works, right? But humans aren't really logical.
And especially in like Western culture, we're failing a lot of high schoolers, I think, by not teaching them rhetoric, by not teaching them how to speak to one another in an empathetic manner, right?
Yeah.
So well,
that's woke.
Yeah. Anything I don't like is woke. But so that is to say, like, we are all subject to bias affirmation, right? That's why I watch leftist commentary in the morning, right? Because I have a leftist bias and I like hearing it reiterated. And the same thing goes for people with regressive or counterculture views, is that I think I posted in your Discord a Stanford Internet Observatory link. They have confirmed or rather affirmed the suspicion that it is not the boogeyman algorithm that is serving regressive content. It is self-selection, right? We are looking for it. And while it's kind of hard to find, the technology is sort of tacitly endorsing that. And that tacit endorsement, so have you ever seen the meme? It's like the big dominoes, right? The little domino says one thing and the big domino. So like Lotax bans anime on the forums, and then the big one is January 6th, right? So along the way, 4chan tacitly endorses racism and regressive politics by changing the logo of the political board to a swastika, effectively, right? And that tacit endorsement, that passive acceptance of that was the platform's fault, right? It's one administrator's fault. And then, we grow on, we see 8chan becoming the like libertarian absolutism, free speech, whatever. And one of their former admins, Fred Brennan, cool person. He's done a lot of interviews and a lot of apologizing for his hand in that stuff. Yeah. He talked to me about the Watkins boys, and I know they're men, but so the Watkins is behind QAnon and a few other operations. They, the 3 parentheses around someone's name to indicate their international Jewry or what have you.
Yeah.
Ron Watkins goes into the code of the site and changes it such that the 3 parentheses becomes like a style markup, and changes anything inside to be blue and white, like the Israeli flag. And that that was an active endorsement of that behavior, but the little tongue-in-cheek behavior, the satire, the excitement of group membership, we affirm it together, right? And then the rest is history, as it were.
And then it moves on.
Yeah, and then it keeps moving on because we travel between these groups, and like I said, I still go back to Something Awful quite a bit. I have a lot of friends, a lot of lefty friends, a lot of queer friends who I met through that place, and we go back to these communities and take the ideas and experiences we got from the fringe communities, or just like, hey, I saw a meme, and you bring it back to your home community. Which is to say that these misinformation, how we interact with it, is we call it multiplanar, right? It doesn't just exist on Facebook just during your exposure to it. You see it on Facebook, you take the shitty take back to your home community and you go, look at this shitty take, let's all laugh at it. But what you're doing is spreading misinformation, because
there's somebody that reads that and is like, everybody's shitting on this, but I think this is actually based.
Yes.
And
yes.
You just spread that, right?
You're assisting their sort of martyr or victim ideal, right? Because we all want to feel like we are the opposed or oppressed, because it makes it much easier to be angry about the state of things rather than want to do change. Are you familiar with Jack Terexia? He was the National Guard dude. Yeah. So that's a great example of
I'm in that Discord. No.
God damn. So that's a great example of multiplanar transit of dangerous information.
Yeah.
Jack discovers a group of younger people in his big Minecraft Discord. They become friendly, found their own Discord, and then he starts cooking up his own little right-wing cult. And those people become infiltrated by actual operators, right? The Donbass girl, or whatever she was calling herself, as she was pretending to be a Ukrainian separatist, but actually was just some right-wing woman in California. So side note, researching misinformation makes me feel crazy because the more you look at it,
fucking hosting a bingo show on a Twitch.tv, you know what I'm saying? I can only imagine.
Yeah, because I look at this stuff and these are the Tom Clancy stories I read in high school. This can't be real, right? And which is counterpoint kind of the reaction we've fallen back on, rather than pushing back or reflecting. We just go, that can't be real, that's bullshit, and that's our failing. We have tacitly endorsed the introduction of dangerous misinformation into our social spaces by saying, I don't want to start shit at work, or this isn't really the time for that. It's always the time, motherfucker. You just gotta have to say it with empathy and with understanding, right? These people aren't your enemy. They are your fellow worker. They are your fellow citizen, and they are misguided. They are victims of this, as we all are. And it can be difficult because a lot of this stuff is very emotionally evocative, which is how it travels. So Jack Terexia sees all this intelligence through Intellipedia, right? and gets very emotionally charged. Like he sees like the culture war coming, and he spends a lot of time, a lot of energy trying to convince these like 16-year-olds to arm themselves and get ready. And it's not registering, right? Like these are kids, their prefrontal cortex is not finished forming. But the adults in there glom onto it and then take the information and bring it elsewhere, hilariously so, to win a fight on the World of Tanks Discord or whatever.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And bias
yeah,
affirmation happens in the weirdest ways. You don't talk shit about my favorite tank. That's my fucking gun waifu.
yeah,
How dare you? Here's some
yeah,
evidence.
yeah,
And we all do that, regardless of political affiliation. Notably so, leftists love spreading misinformation through satire, through memes. And a meme's all you need, man.
Stop.
Yeah, I'm
Stop
sorry.
it.
I'm sorry.
Dude, wait a minute. No.
Yes.
Lefties
Yeah.
sharing memes?
Unfortunate, isn't it?
Fuck out of here,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
No.
Yeah, yeah. It's easier.
Are you spreading
I
misinformation
might
on
be.
the
I
internet?
might be an operative. I'm.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
I've spent 8 months in your Discord, or rather in your in your chat to come on
Yeah.
your show and spread bullshit. But anyway, so those are emotionally evocative, even if it's just a smile and a snort. It feels good to be affirmed by your peers. And so while kind of in the back of your mind, you know, like, this is kind of a hot take, or there's some complexities here that the meme is not addressing, right? Because it can't. It's 800 by 600, 4 panels, whatever.
Yeah.
And we, rather than address the externalities, which is difficult, many of us don't have the tools to do so. Not that we should all engage in very complex discourse on the topic. Not all of us are well armed to do so, or feel out of our league. So rather than engage those externalities, we pass it along. We take the meme, bring it to our home community, say, "Isn't this hilarious?"
Yeah.
And it keeps going, and eventually that emotional reaction is internalized by someone, right? A lot of us were radicalized through memes, through streamer culture, through the fun takedown videos. I'm definitely someone who really enjoys watching YouTubes of grifters and gurus getting taken to task about that. And that's not me doing any work on the issue. That's not me talking to my local community or my fellow workers about, like, hey, we need to stay away from this technology. We need to address this shit. Like, engage, not just engage with your fellow worker or your peers, engage with your dumbass elected officials, right? A story I go back to from many years ago is when Congress like legit wanted to make Pandora radio illegal. And there was such a volume of internet response to that people were moved to call in to their elected representative. And I called in, I got an intern, and she was like, "Oh, we love Pandora here in Dick Durbin's office," or whoever I called.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, then you get it. It's just radio. It's not piracy." And she goes on like, "Yeah, there are a lot of people calling in about this. Like, we hear you." And there we go. The birth of streaming radio is affirmed by not even responding to the stupid legislation,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I'm winding on a bit about this, but
Well, no. And I mean, this might be a good place to wrap up to let some other people get in here. But no, and honestly, I wanted to just even reiterate a lot, like some of the really good points that you made. Where, for one, like the misinformation of the internet is, as it affects us, as our comments and our actions online are put out there. There are, results that we don't factor, right?
absolutely,
Butterfly effect, but digital, if we will.
yeah,
Engaging with misinformation is critical. It's important. How you engage with misinformation
yes,
is just as important, because if you don't engage with it correctly, it will end up spiraling even further on, right?
right,
and this is where you go into talk, dealing with people with empathy
Right.
is
Hmm.
actually how you change minds,
Yeah.
and like I think actually it might be, even referencing the Corn guy, David Corn, when he's just like, I can't help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which at some points, like over a phone call, you're not. That's real. He can't
Hmm.
help that guy.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can only say, here's, like I don't know what you could, you really can't, but it's just more of like a personal life thing, because like you're never going to change somebody's mind in a
Hmm.
debate when they've
Right.
got the position, I'm right and I'm trying to change your
Hmm.
mind. It's just never going to happen. But if you can come to the thing with empathy and start bringing people along,
Yeah.
you know that's actually how you are able to change somebody's mind. But
Yeah, and to that point, like we hear a lot of, oh, just block and report, just block and report, just block and report, and it's like, uh, one, we don't call police on this platform, right? Like we can't trust that the platform will engage in a way that does permanent good, or at least long lasting good. These people will get their accounts banned. I think it was Channel 5 did their piece about the trucker convoy, and some guy was talking about how he's had like 20 plus accounts banned on Facebook, and it's not really stopping him.
yeah,
If and unfortunately, I don't know what the answer is, other than like we stop accepting it in our spaces. We don't accept it at work, and especially in America, the kind of pushing back at work stuff, it makes a lot of us feel icky. And you don't have to pick a fight with your boss. You can just be like, this isn't the appropriate time or venue, but I would love to talk about this more with you. Can we get a beer after work? That's a good way to push back, especially
yeah,
with empathy. But if we have to stop tacitly endorsing it by having our teehees over it, or just ignoring it because that's how it's gotten to the volume it has.
yeah. Word, word. All right, Ben, thank you for coming on. Thank
Thank you
you
for having
for.
me.
Well, no, it just seemed very, very, interesting. Like I don't think I've had a conversation with a disinformation researcher before, so I get to knock that off my bucket list. Underwater basket weaver, I'm coming after you.
Oh
No,
man.
thank you so much. Appreciate you, you calling in and being in the chat, and yeah, we should do this again sometime.
Can I respond to one question from the chat? Someone asked if
Yes. Well,
podcasts like Knowledge Fight are effective in fighting misinformation.
I am actually just gonna say no,
Yeah.
because I kind of just want to say fuck chat.
All right,
No, go
that's
ahead.
fair.
Go ahead.
So it's that those are self-selecting. The only people listening to that podcast are the people who are interested in hearing misinformation debunk. If the local news, or if Fox News were to participate in the debunking, then that would work.
Yeah.
But a knowledge fight, or any of those podcasts behind the bastards, those are arming you to have the conversation.
Mm,
Ultimately, you have to do that work. Take that knowledge, do a little extra reading, and then next time you see Uncle Billy, take it to him.
yeah. Which, do you stream as well?
Looking to get back into it now that research has
Okay.
cooled down. I'd like to, yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, chat, go follow Ben so that when he hits go live after he takes a nap and done researching, you're already good to go. But yeah, thanks, Ben, and
Yeah, man.
I'm
I'd
sure
love to
we'll
come
talk
back and
soon.
talk more on this topic. I can talk.
I have a feeling that there's going to be occurrences in the future that
Okay.
your analysis might be helpful.
I
But
would love to.
yeah. All right, man. We'll
Peace.
talk, and thanks
Be
for
well.
calling in. Um, doo, 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 doo.